it's different having twists and turns, but I do feel that you need a few breadcrumbs in this chapter. And I think that means that you need to give us a sense of what something is off in that house. All right. Let's continue on. Alex, why don't you start with some comments for Melany?
So likewise, I really enjoyed this. It's always wonderful to get into the second or third or fourth, fifth chapter where you finally kind of, you know the characters and you get the setting, and it's just a matter of like, oh, okay, so how's this, like what's going to develop now, and I don't know, I have a particular feeling in my heart for a lot of what happens in this chapter, just because my family are all naturalists, and I'm huge on, and I grew up in the East Coast, so like I get all the animals and the birds and the trees and all that, and it was just really like I really appreciated reading accurate scientific information from a normal human's point of view who gets it about, blue jays and nuthatches and walnuts and maples, and and that all the information was true, and it was so like, I don't know, I really appreciated all that, and noticed the research,
Alex, we were talking earlier about just having that authenticity, and so Melany really nailed it here, right? She really got that. And look at how happy he is, Melany. It's like he's in that book now. He's with the Blue Jays and that.
And granted, it's my own nerdy bit, right? But there's plenty of people out there who are bird watchers, or whatever. And I think they would really appreciate that you either already knew or you did the research to find out the species of birds and so on that would show up at a bird feeder, and the jay would show up and mess it all up, right? Which is absolutely true, right? Blue jays are kind of, they're a pain in the neck. I had to look this one up too. The word caw is really tough, and I don't have a good replacement for it. But the J sound, caw is clearly crow. It's always the word that people use to describe crow vocalizations, and they describe the J vocalizations as J, and that sucks, and it's terrible for the writing. I don't know. I'm gonna keep thinking about it, but I couldn't think of a good word to describe the J, that eastern blue jay sort of scream.
Actually, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Apparently, it's called a jeer.
Yeah, I think that could work. I saw that too. It sounds more like that, like that is a little bit like a red-tailed hawk sound. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, caw is so classically crow. It just made me stop, but whatever. It's literally changing two words. All right. So let's actually talk about the story. One thing I thought about, sort of bigger picture, was the mom's reaction to her husband disappearing. In the previous couple chapters, she seemed pretty much either in complete denial, not understanding what the situation properly because she's losing her memory or sense of reason also, or doesn't care. Like she was very blasé and kind of like, he's gone, whatever, we'll find him eventually, he'll come back, whatever, and then the point of view character is saying that she was super worried, but I didn't get that. So maybe you changed the previous couple chapters. If so, anyway, I just noticed that shift. And where would I fall? I think the mom should be more worried in general. I think her husband just, they've been married for 50 years, and I think she'd freak out. She'd be more freaked out from the beginning. So that's probably where I would fall, but her character could, that she's not, I think could be super interesting narratively. So either way it works, whatever.
So I'm going to interrupt you,
Yeah,
Alex.
yeah.
One thing that's important there is her authenticity as a character. Is that out of character for her to ignore something like that? Or would it be in character based on other things that we might be learning about the mom? Okay. Maybe she doesn't like to face the truth. Maybe she doesn't like to think about getting older. Maybe
Right.
she doesn't like to think about the husband X, Y, or Z, or whatever. But we need to have a reason for that. Because right now she's missing a spark plug.
Right, or just a consistent worldview, right?
Mhm.
Or you know, like, is she really just losing her memory in her mind, or does she really not care about her husband anymore? And she's just like, good, he left, thank God. Finally, I have the questions without the answers. So yeah, just where is the mom? And it should be the same for the first several chapters. So in terms of Anna's point of view, limited third. I mean, I'm right. Mine is in limited third, and there's two big problems with limited third. One is, how on earth do you describe what they look like? You know, and the whole cliche of getting them in front of a mirror and then having them describe themselves, and it's always, when we look at ourselves in a mirror, we're like, oh, that thing under my eye, that my hair, it's always the negative stuff. And you never actually say like, oh, I'm 5'9" with with a graying beard, and right, you know what I mean? Like, it's never the right description. I think in my book, it's page 150 when he finally gets in front of a mirror. Granted, in the 17th century, nobody had mirrors, so it was exceptional. But still, it's and I get it. I don't know. I don't have a good solution for it. But I did the dumbfounded look. That was from the camera suddenly shifted outside and looked in, and then went immediately after that line right back into her head. So I think she could describe how she felt, but not how she looked externally. Anyway, and then the bigger one that actually sort of plays into the chapter was that things that are old hat have to be described as old hat and can't be described as new because the reader's seeing them for the first time. And that's a real tension that's tough to figure out, right? It depends on the style of the narrative, but given what you've got so far, it's a pretty close third. And so the patterns of her life that have been going on for decades with her parents are kind of like, when we actually get a conversation with her and her mom and her dad, it's a lot of kind of, oh God, here we go again. Right. I mean, that's, it's not the description of the problem in their relationship has to come from 20 or 30 years of, I'm so tired of this by now that this is why I don't come home all the time. And describing it for the first time for the reader creates that weird tension where it's like, how do I explain this to the reader? Because I know it's the first time for them, but describe it in such a way that it's clear it's the 80th time for the character, and the weight has to basically be on the latter and let the reader figure it out, right? So like, we basically just have to sort of describe the scene, let it happen, in absolute realism, let the reader figure it out. And then if after all that is done, you reread it and you think, yeah, I need to just confirm that the reader gets it, then you add that line at the very end, just to say like, yeah, you're on the right track. Yeah, she hates her or whatever, this is frustrating. Like, yeah, right. And then you just move on with the scene, and sort of that one little bit of exposition should be just a quick confirmation at the end of the scene, just to let the reader know, like, yes, you're right that this is what it was, but no need to preview it. Start with the action, start with the scene, and then have the reaction, then have the thought, then have the internalization. there's a moment I think where she sort of says, and we do this all the time, right? Because we want to preview it and we're setting ourselves up as the writer, where she braced herself for something her dad was about to say. Just let him say it, and then have the character react to the saying and say, "Oh, here we go again," that kind of thing, right? And then do a bit of explanation in her own head, because that's, have a memory, have a flashback, just a sentence, one sentence, same thing he said to me when I was 12 or whatever, especially about the photography. I thought that was brilliant, that he wants her to do landscape photography and she's not. And that he, I think, yet again and again, is telling her, why don't you do landscape photography? And she's like, how many times do I have to tell you? I don't do landscape photography. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing, right? And because this is not the first time this has come up, it felt to me that he's, and then I think what would be interesting is, because he's got Alzheimer's, there's two moments in that scene where one, he's got clarity, and the other one he doesn't. And the one he doesn't is when he's like, the landscape photography thing. Like, why don't you do that? As if it's the first, for him, it's just occurring to him. And she's like, stop telling me to do landscape photography. I don't do that, And he's like, what are you talking about? We've never talked about, you know what I mean? Like, where he just doesn't, that memory was gone, but the walnut was clear, because I think that walnut scene is really great, where he's pointing at a walnut and saying, that they killed the plant, the trees, all the undergrowth under them is absolutely true. There's this chemical in walnuts and bamboo that both do that. So they don't get crowded out by understory, right? I think she would know what a walnut is from sight. If she knows what a red maple is, she knows a walnut. Like, these are two of the most common, oaks, walnuts, and maples are, I like the walnut thing. She probably might not know that they have this chemical that kills the understory. And that could be one of those things where she's like, wow, he still has stuff to teach me. He's still God, he's got all this knowledge and it's amazing. And then in the next moment, he flips into just something she'd think he'd remember and he doesn't. I mean, Alzheimer's, sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow. It depends. Sometimes it's day by day. And sometimes it is just in those moments. And in the beginning stages for the kids, I mean, I remember when I was with my grandmother, you get frustrated because it's like, why do you not remember this? Like, we just talked about this, you're saying the same thing you just did 10 minutes ago. And you don't, until the diagnosis happens on some level, you don't have the empathy you should as a kid, as a grandkid. And that's really useful to play with because it's so dramatic. And on some level, we all, if we haven't had that experience, we probably will,
I think there's something really important here I wanted to underline that Alex is saying. There's such a great opportunity with his Alzheimer's to show how expectations are being subverted for her with her father. Sometimes it's the same old, oh my God, you've said this a million times. And then sometimes that's absent. And there's an opportunity to show that subversion of these expectations in a way that really provides even more depth to what's going on. Does that make sense, Melany? Okay, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, and it is come and go, right? And it's moment by moment, and it's thing by thing. Some things people remember super well. He might remember the natural world really well, but not remember what her actual job is,
Right.
And that's very, actually, that exact thing is very typical. He lives he's always looking out the backyard, so that's clear in his head. He hasn't seen her in how many years, doesn't exactly remember what she does for a living anymore. Like that's, those are, I mean, I think you got it 100% right, and can just sort of create the disparity even more.
Exactly. And for example, when the dad suggests she talks to the lady in the pizza parlor to get some advice, It's like, what, is she in high school again? She's a very successful photographer. That was chilling in a way, and it just hit home. It was so powerful.
I know, and I've had conversations with my parents just like that one, where it's like, no, I'm not going to be a plumber, Dad. Like what? You know what I mean? And then I think that the only other thing was the opportunity to describe photography was definitely there with the sunrise thing. How would she frame that shot? How would she frame the tree, the walnut on the hill in the distance? I think every single time she looks at something, it should be, how would I frame that? What's the lighting? How's, is this would be perfect in an hour and a half when the sun is a little bit higher or lower, when the light, like the lighting is just getting a little darker now, we're getting to the golden moment, or sunset, oh, it's too late to take this shot. Tomorrow morning, maybe I'll come back here and take that picture. There should be a serious photography moment in every single chapter where she's like, this is her life. This is how she sees the world. It's 100% her perspective, and it's how she interprets her eyesight, second by second by second. It's something I'm trying to work with mine, with sound, or I'm building in more descriptions of sound, because that's my character's primary thing. Reading The Perfume, if you read that, by Patrick Suskind, which is kind of a creepy story, but like it's about odor, and the whole book is about this guy with an amazing sense of smell. Brilliant. I mean, it's overdone, but his ability to describe how this character goes through the world through smell, instead of sight, instead of sound, instead of emotion, instead of human interaction on some level. All he cares about is what smells are like, and that's his world. And it's like, okay, yeah, no, we can all learn from that as writers. So yeah, no, it's really good. Enjoying it, looking forward to more, and yeah.
I'll add to what Alex was saying briefly before we move on to Pam, and that is that I have done photography since I was in my teens, and to this day, I'm looking at the light. All I look at is the light when I'm out in nature. It's just the way that my mind works. Maybe that's why I began to like photography in the first place. But that's so true. I mean, she has a very distinct way of looking at things, composing things, looking at contour, at light and dark, shape, that it's just a treasure chest for you. So I think even if it's a mild reference, it's an important one to keep top of mind. And also that plays at such deep levels as well, because this is all about, those nuances, that point of view. It's how misunderstandings happen, and how maybe a different way of looking, a different angle, a different type of light at a different time of day can cause us to see something that's a distortion. So, it's essential, it's fundamental to the story. You do a good job, you could even do more. Pam, what were your thoughts?
It occurred to me at the end of the chapter, when I sat back and looked at it as a whole, I thought, okay, this is a chapter that shows the reader some family dynamics, because we've never seen Anna with her family. And at the same time, you're setting up what will become a shift in that dynamic, because Anna will not have the same relationship with her father, and she won't have the same relationship with her mother as the novel progresses. So it's a grounding chapter in a way. And I do agree that there's a lot of opportunity to show Anna's reactions that will build the apprehension of a shift for readers. So, for example, this was my first thought. When I go to the first page, I thought if you opened the chapter almost at the bottom of the page with Anna saying, "So were you not going to tell me?" that feels like the opening to me, because it brings out tension and it's focusing on this scene is going to set a dynamic between Anna and her mom. And then you're going to shift to Anna and her dad. So the stuff before that, to me, was some of it was backstory you could wind in when you're talking about dad and even mom, but it just felt like the right place to get the reader grounded in what's going on. And as you go to page 2, and she says, the second paragraph, forgetful isn't forgetting to come home. She wasn't going to let her get away with it. And I said, this is where you can build up some emotion through Anna's physical gestures during this time. Does her voice rise? Is she exasperated or shocked that her mom is downplaying it? Or if it's mom's MO to be in denial, maybe she rolls her eyes, maybe she shakes her head. That's where that, like Alex mentioned, that third person limited, you have to rely on this character completely to show you the world around her. And I think using some of those physical gestures is a place to do that. So I thought those are some opportunities. And then once you get to the bottom of page 2, mom has closed the subject. I'm working at the diner, spend some time with your dad. I kind of wanted to see what's Anna's reaction to that. And again, that's an opportunity to show us, is she frustrated? Does she let it go? Does she purposefully let it go? Which is very different. Does she have a sigh? Does she roll her eyes to show, God, mom always avoids topics she doesn't want to talk about? This, again, these are the things to build the dynamic. So readers, you want readers at the end of this chapter to say, I get how this family operates, so to speak, because you're about to turn it on its head. So for me, that's an important part of this. At the midway through page 3, she takes peanuts, holds out her arm, and he says, tell me, what do you see? I think you need to clarify that, because I thought they were supposed to be looking at the peanuts. And so I couldn't figure out why they were looking at off in the distance. So I think maybe if it's a matter of he lowers himself, maybe he points to the sky. Again, a simple gesture that alerts the readers, what we're talking about. And I agree with Alex and Celeste about the opportunity to talk about her photographic career at the bottom of page 4, or what she sees, because this is who Anna is. So I wanted a little bit more of that there. 5, 6. So when in the scene with her dad, I love the camaraderie isn't the right word, but I love the sense of ease that she has with him. And I think when he does something out of character, she should react to it, because you need the readers to see it. Instead of her saying, that was odd, I think she should show it. For example, and I'm wondering if this is one of those, so I'm not sure. On page 6, Anna instinctively follows her dad, which to me builds that dynamic of she is the daughter and she follows the dad, and the dad takes the lead. And now dad says, why don't you lead the way? Is that, and I guess I kind of have to ask you, is that a clue, or is that a time when his brain is kind of losing it a little?
That is a shift, and that is an opportunity for her to react to that. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's what I thought. She could find that odd. She could, it also builds on how the sturdiness of that arch mimics the sturdiness of dad. So at the end of this chapter, I want to feel like she thinks that dad is, even though they're having the argument about the photography, when she's a kid, he was that solid arch. He was built layer by layer, memory by memory, into the man that she knew as a solid person. And now he's beginning to waver a little bit. So I think capitalizing on those times when she sees it through her reactions, more so than what she says, will resonate with readers. The only other, let's see, I had a comment. At the bottom of 8, I love this. I love that line, by the way. The last line on page 8, at times like this, she felt like an island offshore from him with no bridge in between. And that's good to show us that, okay, they didn't always have a perfect relationship. But I kind of want to see Anna's tension build a little bit more slowly, how the mood shifts and her discomfort is gradually building. Not just, I think Alex brought it out, not just, gosh, we've had this conversation a million times, but the idea of, doesn't he know we've had this conversation a million times? Why is he? And I think that can be seen with, she's getting frustrated and confused. And I think you want to play up on that a little bit more. Other than that, I think this chapter is setting up a really good dynamic of how this family works and ensuring that I think mom and daughter's dynamic is stronger for me than dad and daughter. And yet I want more of dad and daughter because I want Anna to begin to see something's not quite right here. So if you find those spots where she can do a reaction, she stops, she freezes, she looks at him oddly. Even if she touches his arm and he looks at his arm for a minute, like what stranger is, it's sort of like you play it out as a movie and then you write what the characters are doing. That's what I do sometimes. But anyway, I think that would work great.
Great suggestions. Great notes, both of you. Thank you so much. Melany, I want to start with something different, and then I'll work into some of the comments that Alex and Pam offered you. I thought your world building in this chapter was spectacular. I just loved it. The scene at the beginning with the birds and so forth, going into the forest, the description of the arch. Oh my God, that was beautiful. And I'm seeing more and better a relationship with the dad than I anticipated, knowing what I do know. And I do know things that I shouldn't at this point. So, in fact, the relationship that felt lacking to me was the one with the mom. I didn't really understand that. And I was wondering, if in fact the relationship with dad was always missing something when she was younger, if she felt that he was maybe disapproving of her or, dismissive of her, is it possible that impacted her relationship with her mother? And wouldn't that show up in this conversation? Sometimes when you have one parent that, is like that, then you might lean more heavily on the other one. So what is her relationship with her mother?
So I see her relationship with her mother as fine. Her mom is very easygoing, domestically inclined. She's a peacekeeper. She's not anxious or nervous about anything generally. If anything, Anna might be a little jealous of her mom because she has this great relationship with her dad that she feels like she doesn't quite have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I do think that the reactions, especially Pam mentioned this, I know you did as well, Alex, but during those conversations, I'm looking at very heavy dialogue in the beginning. And I think that is more, because I'm having a hard time reading mom and why she would be so, I can't quite figure out why she wouldn't talk with her daughter about this. At this point, because this is serious. Someone's been out overnight, ends up in a police station. This is life altering for her husband and for her as well. So why is she holding back? I want to get more of a sense of that out of her. Is it that the mom is scared to acknowledge it? And if it is, show that to us. I'm not sure how you do that, but I think you can definitely hint at that as something worth thinking about. And we were also talking about how to describe somebody, and knowing what I know, and I'm not going to give anything away. Who does she look like? Who does Anna look like?
I know exactly what she looks like because I base all my characters on people, real people.
Okay, so does she look a lot like her mother and not a lot at all like her father?
Well, so I don't know if you guys have read this part yet, but she looks just like her mom.
Okay, so that's a great way to describe
Which
her
she needs to.
when she needs to. Well, there she goes. She comes in and she's scuffing around. That word is sticking in my head. She needs her coffee before she even talks to her mother. Her mom is ready to go to work. She's made up. She looks great. Her blue eyes are sparkling. Her face, that is so similar to her own, is like this and that. The comparison couldn't be starker, and yet they look so much alike. Because one's tired and disheveled, and one is ready to go and perky. That's always a good way. And as a comparison, she wished she could. It was funny to Anna that she looked so much like her mom, but maybe 20 years younger, because right now she felt a world apart from what she was seeing. And then describe her mom. That's a good way to go in this situation. But I guess I really want to know more about their relationship. And as I read, I felt like it wasn't thoroughly enough described, or that Anna didn't thoroughly enough miss something that was usually there, an easiness or whatever. So and it almost seemed a reversal. I felt like she was closer to her father. And I know that's not the way it's meant to be, but I felt like there was more of a kinship and a similarity in the way they saw the world. So I'm just going to point it out.
I think she's trying harder to have a good relationship with her dad, and probably doesn't try as hard with her mom.
So then you need in some way to convey that because she and her mom had such an easy relationship, maybe sometimes she took her for granted, or didn't try as hard. That would be helpful. Then I would understand why that relationship is that way. But I thought this was the best chapter yet, that the description, and again, use that. Oh my God, that the archway in the forest, this man-made thing that was woven with nature. This is something very powerful that I can see really carrying throughout the book. And, and the nature of man, the things that happen over time that we can't understand, or that we can't cope with. Maybe the losing of a parent who is physically there, but is no longer mentally what we know, that heartbreak of that. And how does that relate to the fallen limbs of the tree that are yet built into something that's braided together to make something even stronger? I mean, this seems a premonition, if you will, of what this book is about. And I thought that was just striking. So I just was very, very impressed with that. I think it's really heading along. How are you feeling about it?
I think I need to figure out how to deal with the family. A lot of the conflict early on in the story, and like the reason she doesn't come home, is really more about the town than the family. But so I need to figure out more ways to show some conflict with the family.
Yeah, that was the next question I was going to ask you. Is why exactly she left?
It's all about the small town.
In a way, then that shows up when the dad is suggesting she go and talk to the woman who had the show in the gallery. I mean, she is a million miles away from that. And maybe he's just not seeing her any further than the way she was as a 15-year-old when she was taking photos for the yearbook at school, So I would like to know more about why she left early on and the frustrations that she has. But I just think there's some really beautiful prose going on here that is also very informative. And in the areas where you haven't really gone as far into the characters as I would like, I would encourage you to really think about them in a very holistic way, and maybe even, look at some of these ideas that I presented early on, see if they aren't a springboard for you. It seems you have these things in mind, but how can you connect them in a way where it feels more cohesive? And then make things evolve as I often say. In this case, unfortunately, something is falling apart, but how can that ultimately bring them together in a way that's meaningful. That's what I want to know, because this is a story. It's literary fiction. It's also family fiction. It's also women's fiction. It's all of these things layered on in a very interesting way that is quiet and yet very provocative. So you have to really push on that and own it, you know. So very well done.
Bardsy delivers the tools, guidance, and support you need to produce compelling novels. Our well-researched and thoroughly tested approach includes our minimum complete story, a 90-second exercise that keeps your writing on track while fueling creativity, Bardsy Publishability Index, a 23-dimension checklist that offers attainable goals and provides actionable feedback, and our brand new comprehensive character developer that helps you construct unforgettable characters. Come see for yourself at Bardsy.com today. Try our workshop or enter our first chapter contest. Then, when you're ready, Elite Membership delivers writing groups, personal coaching, and a curated community. With Bardsy, your work will captivate everyone, from agents to publishers, and, most importantly, your readers.
What mistakes she didn't want to make a second time, or what things she wanted to try that were different, why she fell for certain things. Again, we need more of an understanding of Lenora around that episode in her life.
Okay.
So, things to think about. All about character development.